Tonight on the Game On podcast, Adelaide, get the job done. Sometimes you have to win ugly, and it was ugly. And Port Adelaide, get their season back on track, but can they maintain it? That is the question. And should this young fan be banned for 2 years from the SCG? We've got a little bit to unpack there. All right, let's do this. Welcome to the Game On podcast. My name's Pete. Once again, joined in the studio here with Malcolm. Malcolm, how's your week been?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. A bit quiet. I admit the body's struggling a bit.
Is that trying to catch up from gather round and being here, there and everywhere?
I just need a new body, basically. New back if anyone's got one out there.
Yep, no worries.
So, yeah, I actually didn't do much after working at Nord on Thursday night, thanking Peter Myers for his help there big time. And, yeah, struggling a bit. When he said, you're not even walking around trying to sprig your book, he said, you must be struggling. So, yeah.
There you go. Mate, we might have to get a chiropractor or a physiotherapist as a sponsor, mate. Get you back on the right side of that body doing what you need to do to obviously get you up and going.
Just a gun, mate, I think. Body doesn't feel a day over 95.
There you go. We've all had days like that, mate. Before we get into it, what was probably your highlight from the weekend, just quickly?
Adelaide, in terms of, because it was different, that they toughed the game out, was so much better defensively. So it was a different win. I still thought there were elements of the game which were compelling.
Yes.
I thought Max McElhinney, I was surprised he didn't get the 10 votes in terms of, because I thought he was easily the most important player for the day.
I knew you were going to mention Max there.
Yes.
All right, mate, let's get into Around the Grounds.
Around the Grounds.
All right, as per usual, we're going to talk some soccer, and we've got soccer from the weekend and also currently being played right now. The SANFL, and we're going to have a little bit of a chat about the netball as well. But let's kick off with the AFL. First up, mate, Adelaide, as you've just mentioned there, was a little bit scrappy affair, but a mature performance in that they didn't get everything their way, but they were able to weather the storm and keep GWS to a pretty low score in the context of their season.
I think Nick Murray back was pretty important, and just Adelaide getting their players in the right spot. Like Whitfield and Ash got a lot of the ball,
yes,
but didn't really hurt Adelaide. It had reasonable meters gained, but because they were so well positioned, and the fact that McElhinney killed Toby,
yes,
and Hogan didn't play, they then fall away a bit. Like
left them a little bit vulnerable.
Well, Jake Stringer, he does the odd burst. We know that by now, but there's reasons why he's at his third club. I'm not sure that he fits in well enough nowadays with, you've got structures and adhering to structures, and they're so important defensively.
Yes.
I think that's where people overlook that sort of thing.
You mean forward pressure?
Yeah, just so important.
In forward defence, yes.
And look, that was when going here and gather around, going to watch Collingwood play, just how they've all bought into it.
Yep.
Yes, they're old, but geez, they all go to the right spot. And Lipinski was the one there, which you just do not see watching the game on TV, how vital he is to fitting in.
I think Mychek's in that same boat, isn't he, with Collingwood.
And just things like that, you just really appreciated more watching live.
Yep.
And, I just thought always, okay, I wasn't at the game, I only watched it, but just their positioning behind the ball was at the best it's been in a long, long time.
Yep.
So, yes, it was weird. Apparently, it was a lot windier down low.
Yes.
So even the player going to do the ball drop, it was hard to guide it down onto their foot.
Yep.
So
now I left it on the run sheet from last week, and you've already touched base on it. In Nick Murray being Adelaide's most important player, it did balance things out a little bit, and probably gave Max that little bit of freedom to go with someone like Toby, who does roam up and then roam back, and play that.
That Max let him go a little bit in the midfield. They swapped over,
Yep.
but Max took him every time immediately. He went to come forward.
Yep.
And it was good to see Max back himself in a bit more. we all know he's fantastic defensively.
Yes.
He's arguably the best lockdown defender in the comp, but it was good he was also a bit more offensive as well.
Yep.
Kicked his first goal. We saw that. That was
Absolutely.
fantastic. Yeah, I reckon Jim would have even a piano would have said a quiet word, "You little bloody beauty," as that went through. And that for Jim, that would have been a big reaction. Oh, it's hilarious. You don't want to sit near him when one of the Michael Annies is playing. He is like a cat on a tin roof.
Fair enough. Obviously, Max has struggled a little bit from time to time. Injury, obviously, in the pre-season. Just trying to find his feet a little bit with some of those new players that are back in that back line where it is a bit more balanced, a little bit more shed, whereas last year he was almost that number one, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, very much so. And, I think there's all the publicity being given at the moment to halfbacks with their possessions. Let's remember that that's important, but their first job is also to beat their player, and I really hope he gets recognised in that regard. He's going to have a big job. You'd think he'll get Bolton when Bolton's forward this week. So, similar.
That's that versatility that we talked about. Obviously, Max kicking his first goal, as you said there, fantastic for him. Could we see him squirt into the midfield a little bit over this next little period?
I don't think they will. I think they'll just leave him as being the general in defence.
Yep.
Back him in, probably encourage him to be a bit more offensive because he's got a beautiful kick as well.
Yes.
He is the whole package. So I think they'll just do it that way. And look, they get Peatling back this week. So, I think they're batting deep enough in that regard.
Yep. Look at coming out of the back line. All right, Malira, you've flagged a little bit with Malira, but at his best, his delivery is very good.
He was better defensively on the weekend. Yep. Defensively, he's been poor at times this year. He was better in that regard.
Michael Annie, obviously, we just talked about. Rory Laird goes back. Peatling in there. They've got options, don't they? Especially with trying to break lines from that half-back line into that forward line. And Hinge is having an absolute fantastic year. Apart from
the gather-round
game.
Yeah. It was kick into the man on the mark night. It was crazy.
Well, and Rory Laird did the same thing.
It was weird.
It was very weird. Toby Green, we did talk about against Max there. He had a little bit of the angry ant about him against a couple of former teammates. Was that the frustration?
I think it was more the frustration that Michael Annie was well on top.
That's what I thought, yep.
Yeah, he's pretty high standard of himself. He was brilliant the week before. Easily best on ground the week before at the home of football. Mm-hmm. I just think when he starts to struggle a bit, the angry pills do come out.
I haven't seen the fines and suspensions and everything, but I'm sure there's got to be some rough conduct charges somewhere in there because he did shove a couple of players.
I don't think.
There you go.
No, I might have seen that page yet.
Yep.
Bailey Smith got 2 for yesterday.
Yes.
And that which wasn't a surprise.
Yep.
Mind you, $1,875 for rubbing a footy into a face, which isn't that correct decision. It's a blatant free kick.
Absolutely.
Total obvious decision there.
Does it come under the auspice of bringing the game into disrepute for the young ones at local footy, maybe?
It does. So I get that. Well, but as we know, we will be onto that subject later on.
We will indeed. Does a win like this give Adelaide the belief that they can match it with the better teams? Or did they just get GWS at the right time?
I think a bit of both.
Yep.
So it's a big game this week. Look, hopefully they've dodged a bullet with Fogarty. Hopefully he comes up.
Let's talk about that right now. Do you take the risk with Fogarty and Rochelle? It looks like he's half a chance. Do you take the risk or do you back yourself in and go, you know what? We're playing really good football. Can we manoeuvre things around a little bit to maybe give him that week off?
It was interesting. I was listening to Double A and to Scott Camperali.
Yep.
I've always said Camperelli.
No, that's right. Camperali. Yep.
To his credit, he called it exactly what it ended up with. He nailed it with what Fogarty's got, and he said he'll be a huge chance to play next week. Wow. So I thought that was interesting.
Yep.
It wasn't the response I got from someone else the next morning involved in Adelaide that he didn't think he'd play, but it might. You just got to wait and see. But apparently they're an injury which proves reasonable. Don't worry, if he plays, he'll have a couple of jabs.
Absolutely.
But
Does that rearrange that forward line a little bit where he does maybe become the deeper forward?
yeah, look, I
Or
think
does he roam a little
I
bit?
think he'll still roam it. Look, he has experience there. He kicked 5 against West Coast there.
Yep.
And that the ground dimension's exactly the same as the G.
Yes.
So there is a bit more room. So I think that probably does suit him. So,
Okay.
yeah, hopefully,
Would have Adelaide looked at this game? Let's say Fogarty,
Yep.
wasn't injured. He's fully fit, fully
Yep.
ready to go before the injury, obviously, on the weekend. Do they look at this game and go, maybe this is the one that they rest Tex Walker for, but now becomes a little bit sort of grey?
I think with that, it would have been sort of maybe suggested at the start that this is a game, whatever, Perth avoid. But
Yep.
at the moment, apparently his body's going as well as
Yep.
it has for a couple of years.
Yes.
Um,
Don't change your winning formula.
yeah. And I think he's pretty keen to play
Of course.
because the body's okay. It's not struggling at all.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Is it one of those ones where if you do stop for a week, it's hard for him to get going again, being that he is a little bit older? Could
I'm
it be that?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one. I haven't asked Wacker that.
Yep. It's an interesting one, isn't it?
It is. But again, the room, his length of kick for a goal. Yeah, look,
Yep.
Yeah,
And they've got options too in resting him deep, having
Yeah.
him roam.
I would. So we'll wait and see. Look, I think might be interesting. They might make Rochelle the sub if he comes up.
Yep.
Is a potential one as well.
Exactly.
So let's wait and see.
Obviously, Tex Walker there, not getting the number one defender, is he? It's now gone on to Thilthorpe or Fogarty, which does give him that little bit of room. Makes your body feel a lot better when you're not getting the biggest guy banging into you every week,
It's
doesn't it?
also his experience just to tell guys where to play. And the other thing what he's added to his game in the last 3 or 4 years is the ruck craft.
Yep.
He never did that years ago. And
Yep.
now all of a sudden, it's become a weapon
Yep.
of his game. He's getting generally
Sammy
a goal
Balderstone's
or
still
so
down
a game. Yes, so I probably should touch base with
Yeah.
Sam in that regard.
Yeah.
But it's become a weapon. He's generally getting a goal or so a game. It was just good body positioning. And while it's a beef of mine of umpires not understanding the ruck rule, and
Yep.
God, there was one at Nord in the reserves game on Friday night. I think a demented Wombat understood the rule a bit more.
And coming from a former umpire, that's a big thing, mate.
It was staggering. It
Yep.
was. It was just so frustrating. And it does. It's a beef of mine with ruck free kicks where they just blow it with his just such minor. But the one to Tex, he just positioned his body and it was there.
Yep.
It was dumb by Briggs.
Yep.
Really dumb.
All right, let's move on to Port Adelaide. Adelaide have got a bit of a challenge this week, and we'll talk about that one a little bit later. All right, Port Adelaide, still the chocolates on Easter Sunday in Sydney. We did sort of preface that we thought they'd be going all right, but Sydney just need that little bit of touch of class coming back into their side with all the injuries they've got.
Sydney were disappointing, really disappointing.
I agree.
And
100%.
Blakey on the buses was spraying his kicks for goals, just like he was as reliable as the buses on the show. And
Yes.
in that regard. And then really Port stopped in that last quarter, and McLean drops that mark in the goal square, which was just a sitter.
Yep.
It would have made it 2 points the difference with 94 seconds to
And
go.
gave them,
And you the way they were going, you almost back Sydney from there. And
Yep.
they certainly they kicked 5-8 in the last quarter and missed a couple of sitters.
Mm-hmm. It's
it was
a case of what could have been.
Yeah, and look, Kane Corns is right on the McCartan. He's got no idea how to play up forward.
Yep.
Yeah, he's horrendous up there. Leave him down back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that team balance from Sydney, though?
Yeah, look, and I got that they suddenly went, and I actually watched the Sydney Swans reserves game the day before.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell you're crook when you're watching all the reserves games as well, mate.
Yep. You just
there were
haven't, you just
people I
haven't
was
had enough
watching.
footy, mate. That's really
No,
what
there
it
were
is.
people I was wanting to watch.
Yep.
I watched Boydie's whole game yesterday, actually, for Sandringham.
Yep.
And watched a bit. I wanted to watch Ned Bowman play
Yes.
for Sydney, and I thought Ned was pretty good too. We'll touch base with Lockie,
Mhm.
but not picking McDonald was he's a few weeks away from
Yep.
playing AFL. The way his body's still
Yep.
a long way away.
Sydney were missing a few, but the emergence of some of Port's young guns would certainly please a few fans out there. They've got a good little crop of players that are just doing enough at the moment, not only to, sort of give you a little bit of hope for the future, but they've got a bit of a springboard.
Oh, and they're just Rosie to half back, and I thought it was a good move of Sydney to start Jordan there. I thought, right,
it's game on.
If he blocks Rosie off, they'll struggle a bit. And Rosie took him to cleaners. He was just too good.
Yep.
And Sydney went, hey, he's too good, and moved him off him and that. But
Well,
Rosie's just evasive skills at half back were just brilliant.
When
He was BOG to half time.
Yes, and that's what I was going to say. When they moved him into the midfield, that's when things change a little bit.
Yeah, I think half back, again, I still have nightmares of 18.
Yep.
We'll
try not to bring it up too many more times. We talked about it a little bit last week. I touched base on it again. That midfield mix of Rosie coming off that half back line, Horne-Francis and Ollie Wines, which we'll talk about in a minute, and Butters just seems to be that right mix with a Bergman and even I think they had Burgon in there at one or two centre bounces as well. So they've got a little bit of talent to burn.
Oh, there's plenty of talent there.
Are they a chance to get Wanganeen Malura from St Kilda?
Both teams will have a crack.
Who do you think's the front runner?
Adelaide.
Ooh, good call. Fair enough.
Maybe because of a relationship of former Adelaide person who's now at Adelaide.
Yep.
May have picked him up for St Kilda.
Gotcha.
So leave it at that.
Gotcha. Hey, friendships in football,
Yes.
basketball, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, with wanting to play with certain people or for certain people or with
I just think
around
that means
certain
it
people.
starts with Adelaide in the better position. Doesn't mean that Port won't trump them, whatever,
Yep.
but I just think at the moment,
Do you think Port have put too many eggs in the Horne-Francis basket, which leaves them a little bit vulnerable medium to long term with some of those decisions if they do decide to go for someone like a Wanganeen Malura?
potentially, but they had to get him.
Yep.
Yeah,
No.
chance to get him. And ironically, there was another player who was virtually within 5 minutes of signing for Port.
Yep.
Who's now at West Coast.
Yep.
Is my understanding.
Yep.
Allegedly
Yes.
about to sign. Let's
Yep.
cover ourselves
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
And all of a sudden, Horne-Francis bit came up. So it was quite ironic how it happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
The only reason I ask about that is that, Port Adelaide wants success, and I'm sure Josh Carr wants some success from next year onwards. Having that draft haul that they've still got to make up for over the next few years does leave them in a vulnerable state of being in that. We talk about it all the time about, say, a St Kilda in that middle six all the time.
While it does, but if Horne-Francis continues his progression and is a top 5 player in the league, which I think he can be,
Yep.
and
It's
and
pretty
him
close.
and Butters and Rosie combining, they've got 3 guys who are elite.
Yep.
You've got those 3 in your side,
All
you're
right.
a chance.
Let's play hypotheticals. Questions without notice here. What if Butters leaves?
If Butters, again, I actually agree with Michelangelo Rucci on this one, that
Yep.
if he doesn't make a commitment to Port by the end of this, they've got to try and do it.
Yep.
Right, what do you want to do? If you want to go, you go now so we can do a trade for
Yep.
you.
Yep. Which then opens up the Wanganeen Malura. So
yes.
this is why I'm sort
Yeah.
of getting into it in a roundabout way. Another heart scare for Port gun, Ollie Wines. This is something that they've had to manage over the last few years, but it's nevertheless concerning, isn't it?
It is. It's now it's the 3rd time, but you're backing their doctors and in terms of that and the
Yep.
professional people involved.
And medications and
and
everything that goes along with it. Yep.
I also thought it was great that Chris Davies, a person who I've got enormous respect for.
Mhm.
CD, Chris did play Shield cricket for South Australia.
Yes.
And he has his own medical battles.
Yes.
And so I'm going to say there's a fair bit of compassion there from
Yep.
CD, which
And
I
he
think
understands
would,
it better than
oh,
most.
bloody
Yep.
oath. And I think that probably gives Ollie a bit of confidence that he's going through more than I am
Mhm.
and supporting me. That's
Absolutely.
pretty big. So, I thought Chris was the perfect person to have involved
Yep.
in that regard.
It's going to be an interesting watch. Are Port back? Have they got a few teams at the right time, though?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm still a little bit off. I thought they just didn't finish the game. And look, they've been outscored every last quarter this year.
Yep.
Even by Richmond.
Yep.
and that here when they were 80-odd points up at three-quarter time.
Yep.
When my prediction of them winning by 86 looked very good at that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Surprising it wasn't 106, to be honest with you.
So in that way, I just think there's still a few doubts.
Yep.
And the fact that, they've lost Marshall and lost Lukosius.
Yep.
That they're relying on Georgiadis, who's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not having a crack at him whatsoever. But it's a hell of a lot to be put on him. Rioli's footy smarts are fantastic. A couple of times yesterday, just where he goes to, he just reads it so well. Yeah, he is class. And so they've got those two bases.
Mm-hmm.
But if you manage to get Rioli locked down, someone does a good job on Georgiadis as well. I'm just not sure where their goals are coming from.
Mate, you've segued perfectly into what I wanted to ask about Georgiadis. Is he Port Adelaide's most valuable player as far as getting them a score? We know the exploits of obviously Horne-Francis and Butters and Rosie, but if he's not on fire or he's not finding the ball, where are their goals coming from? And you've mentioned Rioli. Is there anybody else that's jumping up at the moment?
Well, they are the two.
That's
and
why I asked.
Horne-Francis is the other one.
That's why I asked.
And that. So Ollie Lord's got potential.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that. But he's got to get a bit more consistent.
Yep.
A bit hot and cold.
Yes.
So there's still question marks.
And we don't believe that Marshall's probably going to come up via the concussion side of things.
Well,
potentially,
but having all this time off is probably helping in that regard.
Yep.
So
yep. Yeah. And then you've obviously got Lukosius and where he fits in with that. Yeah. So we really haven't seen Port Adelaide at their absolute best yet, but they are grinding out wins where needed.
And they've got North Melbourne this week, so they go 4-3 after this week.
Oh, you've already made a prediction on that. Yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right.
Oh, don't worry. I hope I'm wrong.
Let's get up to some AFL hot topics. First up, we saw an incident yesterday. And by the way, how good was Easter Monday football?
Yeah, great game.
Once again between Geelong and Hawthorn. Congratulations to both those clubs. 89 or 90-odd thousand
89, yep.
People there at the MCG. But the big talking point, big couple of talking points out of that game. We'll go with the first one, the collision. Initially, my first reaction was, that's a football incident. But going back and watching it a second time, it was clumsy, it was awkward, it was just, wrong time, wrong place. And what do you think suspension-wise? How many weeks are we looking at?
He's been sent to straight to the tribunal, so I think he'll get 4.
Yep.
It'll either be 3 or 4, but I think 4 is more likely.
Yes.
The fact that they've sent him to the tribunal.
Yep.
Look, I am a massive fan of the send-off rule, always have been for a long, long time.
Yep.
Because involved in community footy where it's always been there. For mine, that was just a real blatant one yesterday. That it was poor.
Yep. Initially, again, I only saw it fleetingly.
Straight away, it was my initial reaction. Bang!
I saw it fleetingly, and my first reaction was, a footy collision. Nah. And then afterwards, I was like, hang on, no, let's go back and have a look at that. And went and looked, no, that's not what the game wants and needs. Red card obviously has been mooted once again. Lee Matthews made a very good point on one of the footy shows last night. Might have been on the couch.
Yeah.
This only happens 3 or 4 times a year.
Exactly.
Is there special, especially with the arc and umpires being mic'd up, not mic'd up.
Look, we all saw that yesterday. Within a replay, within a minute, it was just so blatant.
Yep.
Yes, off you go for the game. It's right. It's unfair that the team infringed loses a player.
Yep.
So, and Myers at that stage was close to BOG as well. That Hawthorn gain out of that. Just in this case, again, using it as a case here. It's not Nat versus Connor Nash. But I just think it's just overall, I think it's the correct thing to do.
Yep.
Personally.
Look, I'm going to play devil's advocate.
It's just got to be the only really blatant.
Correct. This is what I'm talking about, is that if you do go into a grand final and you almost the Dermy one where they line him up off the centre bounce and take him, In this case, they didn't quite take him out of the game, but broken ribs and sternum and
The
everything
old
else.
Get Smart, I missed him by
that much. Exactly right. Is that a team could actually target a specific player to take him out based upon that they see him as the best player for the day.
Oh, look,
Would the red card stop that?
Yes.
Yep.
And it happened years ago.
Yep.
Barmy v. Carlton.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's been there for a while. It's a good little rule to introduce, and I think it's under exceptional circumstances that it needs to be.
And again,
enforced.
that was a total different era back then. I will defend Neil Balmer to the hilt there because it was, there was Vinnie Wade. Every team, Carl Dittrich, every team had one.
Yep.
There was a hatchet man, basically.
Yep.
And you were expected to do it back then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Him out. See you later. All right, second big one from the weekend, especially from that same game, was the Bailey Smith ball in the face. Overreaction a little bit or massive overreaction?
A little bit. In terms of, I agree with the point you made off air where the thing for junior football, I do think that is still important.
Yep.
Well,
I sort of made the mention, I'll talk about it now, in that, is it a case of maybe bringing the game into disrepute because of that? You're showing kids that...
It is slightly, and yet, don't worry, kids do copy. And it's a pain in the ass how much umpiring, how much they do copy. So out of that way, so while we go, shit, $1,875, bloody hell.
Yep.
Well, that's still money in the glove box for for Bailey.
And that money does go back into the community as well. So... Look, it's one to learn from, and certainly one that we probably won't see too often, and we haven't really seen too often, really, when you think about it. All right, the other big one, talking point that came from the games weekend was the Alia incident in Sydney. The young man, 2-year suspension from the SCG.
Yeah, I personally think that's a bit over the top.
Yep.
Like it was.
In what way?
Well, it was a clapper. It wasn't like he cracked him over the head with it. Drop. Apparently he swore, but there was nothing racial because I think that's what the media were hoping for straight away. You bloody beauty, we've got a
story.
We've got a Adam Goods situation again. Rah,
Yep.
rah, rah. And
and the way that
taken to
Alia
jail apparently, and so I thought it was. Now again, allegedly that it was the lad's mum sitting next to him. Now, if that's correct. Myself as a parent, it would have been, Johnny, we're going. You've misbehaved. We're going. You don't get to see the end of the game. We're out of here.
Yep.
Leave straight away. That stops the thing coming over. It stops the media cameras on. That would have been the smart thing to do.
And a ton of security coming and ushering.
If you just got out of the ground like a rocket, that would have stopped security because they would have been on the way out. Yes, they could have been identified on camera afterwards and all that, but I think it would have taken.
If they were members, and
so that still would have happened, but it would have taken the heat out of the time.
Yep. Congratulations has to go to Tom Harley. He did, make contact with Alia and say, what was going on.
Hales is always going to do that.
I agree, and to Sydney's credit, that they've built that SCG crowd from really nothing. I mean, think back to the 80s where there was a handful of people there, and
who were all on free tickets, by the way.
Pretty much, exactly right. And now they're getting close to sellout crowds on a regular basis. We don't need that in the game, but I'm a bit with you. Just a touch of overreaction.
This year would have been enough.
If it had been a bottle or
glass, completely different. Totally different.
I 100% get that. It almost looked like the young lad stood up to sort of swipe it at him, but he ended up letting go. It's still the intention of what he's doing. So
it was
totally
silly,
agree.
But I just think it was a little bit over.
I totally agree, mate. I think we're on the same page there. All right, upsets everywhere over the Easter weekend, throwing up some surprising results. Let's go through them now. The first one, obviously on the board, was Collingwood v. the Brisbane Lions.
Yeah, that didn't surprise me in terms of Collingwood winning. The margin, yes. But in terms of Collingwood winning, that didn't surprise at all. And I think at the moment, as I've said, they're structure-wise, I think just brilliant.
And they're as hot as anybody at the moment.
Yeah, so in that way, but it was more the margin was the surprise.
Is it a little bit of like a bit Geelong from a few years ago? Too old, too slow.
Too good.
Too good?
Yeah.
That's really what it gets down to, isn't it?
Yeah, look.
Where does it leave Brisbane?
Just a wake-up call. And I think, deep down they would have been, well, hang on, we haven't been good enough. we've been pressing the button here and there. You can't keep coming from behind like that. We need to.
Yep.
I think it's a bit of a wake up.
And
call.
Collingwood found that out last year, where they 2 years before that they were pushing the button and being able to win those close ones.
So I don't think it hurts.
Do you think the Brisbane Lions understand better this year that it's a marathon, not a sprint?
Potentially, but I do think not having Danaher has changed their forward strat. They've lost, the key element out of their forward line. Charlie Cameron's got the yips and is struggling.
He's just not finding the ball like he usually does
and his kicking for goal here was horrendous. I've only seen the highlights of that game because obviously it was on at the same time as Nord.
Yep.
But yeah, he's struggling, and so their forward line, they need a bit more from Rayner consistently.
Yep.
As we said, Hipwood's he's in and out as well. Zach Bailey was very good the first 5 games, so out of that, but they need to work a bit more collectively together. I think it's been a bit more individual spurts.
Yep.
So
I think they're going to come good as the season gets on, and it's going to be an interesting one to watch. All right, North Melbourne and Carlton in the Good Friday game. Carlton winning by 82 points.
I thought that was the most disappointing display of any team for the weekend. That the outs were Carlton had, so you would have thought, they shouldn't get exposed defensively again. Their scores they're giving up at the moment, North Melbourne, is horrendous. And they pointed out that Curtis is basically their whole forward line defensively. There's nothing else coming defensively.
Yep.
And there's a few people now jumping on the why in the hell did you recruit Darling side of things.
Yep. Carlton getting on a bit of a roll, but also catching up with a couple of teams just at the right time as well. All right, West Coast Eagles v Essendon. This was a bit of a beauty in the end.
Yeah. Certainly West Coast had their chances, and for mine...
Well, some of their older players just found a little bit of form.
A little bit, but then Ryan panicked at the end. And look, I don't get the bit... With Oscar Allen, if he was fit to play, why not have played him down back?
Yep.
Why not have gone, right, let's surprise him. You've got Peter Wright down. Because if we block Peter Wright up, I can't see Essendon kicking and winning a score.
Yep.
So how about you go down back this week,
let
you run straight ahead at the ball, back you in.
Yep.
He doesn't play a home game.
Yes.
Now, I get it if he misses an away trip to miss...
Or Brisbane
or
Gold Coast or somewhere. Way over there.
I understand that and all that. But our data had him as our most used player so far. Yet again, it was bullshit by West Coast. It was, footy clubs and bullshit. Yeah, we've had another huge case of that this week.
We have indeed.
Don't worry, we will get into that.
Absolutely.
But it's crap. Stop being...
Is this...
Just say you dropped him.
Is this setting it up for a potential priority draft pick?
The fact that he was prepared to meet and he is captain, we've always said that's got a bit of a smell test as well.
Yep.
And and then the bit, he's fully committed, and it just...
Yep. Geez. Bit of a worry. All right. Melbourne getting their first win of the season over the Dockers by 10 points. Interesting.
Yeah. Pickett was the one. To Pickett to play a lot more, so midfield and then go forward. So at one stage, he almost kicked the ball to himself. He was that bloody good.
Yep.
He wasn't only BOG. He was the best. He was the best 5 on the ground, effectively.
Absolutely.
So in that way, and it did straighten them up because he ran and carried. They did give the ball off a bit more.
Yes.
Look, and I think that is the way to give Viney a job. I think that's where he can still perform a useful role. And the stats show with playing Freo, if you cut Caleb Sarong's influence right out, the number of times they win with him struggling, percentage is under 25%. So
question without
that did
notice.
The job.
Who gets him this week from Adelaide?
I think Peatling.
Yep.
Will get him. So
should be an interesting watch.
Yeah.
Richmond getting up over the Gold Coast Suns by 11 points. There's a few that were surprised, and there were a few that weren't so surprised.
I rated it as the biggest surprise for the week.
Yep.
But I think in retrospect they went in too tall. Walter and Young and Reid both have enormous potential.
Yep.
But the fact at the moment, both of them are only playing under 50% game time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's bloody hard as a forward to be on the ground for 3 minutes, then off for 7 and that. So
continuity.
I'd just play Jed Walter. I'd play him. I'd back him in, give him decent game time, and just play the 2.
Yep.
With the 3, they were just too tall, and Richmond ran it out. And
is that
Vastulin killed him.
Yep.
And I just think they were really poor organisational wise.
Is that the difference between Adelaide playing 3 tall forwards and Gold Coast? Is just that Marshall, like Walker, moving everybody around like chess pieces,
and he's the one with the experience, the teacher.
Whereas
because don't worry,
Coast
remember when Walker didn't play against Western Bulldogs last year at Ballarat?
The
Crows were terrible,
Yep.
And it was almost like Thilthorpe and Fogarty going, "Where's our teacher? Can we have our prefect back?" sort of thing. They were shit without him,
and that's where Gold Coast are at a little bit at the moment. The other big surprise was the Western Bulldogs getting up by 71 points over St Kilda. I watched a good chunk of this game, and well, we'll talk about it now. The incident I've got on my sheet: the 2 young forwards, both escaped some pretty serious injuries. Both of us sort of thought that it was a full 12-monther
very much so.
For Darcy, and we thought it was a good chunk of time for Darcy Fogarty as well. But yeah, that hyperextension looked very nasty.
Oh, yeah, I thought straight away that's ACL. No way in the world is that not that's just classic ACL.
Yep. And we wake up the next morning and
it's still it's still a pretty serious injury.
Absolutely.
He's expected not to be back till about round 22, 23. So it's still a huge injury.
Absolutely.
And they're not really going to know till when they're in there how much damage has been done. So he may be out for the year anyway. Probably the thing is that at least hopefully he'd recover and be able to start pre-season then sort of thing. So not be behind the 8 ball with still the recovery from the ACL. So look, it may still end up similar in time. We just got to wait and see.
Yep. We already talked about the Hawthorn and Geelong clash. A couple of good, interesting stats from the weekend. Essendon Ruckman, season-ending injury. Where does that leave his negotiations for, say, the Crows?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? And look, Achilles injuries aren't easy to come back from either.
No.
And it was just classic. They rolled the gauntlet. They were worried about his calf, but hang on, we haven't got anyone else. At 3/4 time, we can win this.
Yep.
And just classic. No one around you, bang. Like I've still never forgotten Brian Colby doing his at Footy Park.
Yep.
Where we ducked in the grandstand.
Thinking that
we thought a gun had gone off.
Yep.
And that never forgotten that.
Yep.
And I reckon that was 74, I think.
Yep.
I'll check. He certainly didn't play in the 75 grand final, so I reckon it was 70. I'll look that up and check exactly when it was.
I like it. Mate, the other interesting stat, and you messaged me this yesterday afternoon, which was an absolute beauty. We'll go back to the Western Bulldogs and St Kilda, mate. This is the team that the players that you listed missing from the 2016 Premiership side under Luke Beveridge. Zane Cordy, Caleb Daniel, Joel Hambling, Jack McRae, Josh Dunkling, Jake Stringer, Lockie Hunter, Luke Dalhouse, Tom Campbell, and he's reinvented that side, hasn't he?
Yeah, look, I did send it through in terms. Oh, what a surprise! No, that's not that one.
No,
go back. That's a different.
We'll talk about that one in a minute because I'm watching the same one, mate.
Yeah, that was really just to point out. Of the 2016 Premiership side at Western Bulldogs, that Zane Cordy is now at St Kilda. Caleb Daniels is at North Melbourne. Joel Hambling originally went to Fremantle, now he's at Sydney.
Yep.
Jack McRae is now at St Kilda. Dunkley at Brisbane. Jake Stringer went to Western, then GWS.
Yes.
Lockie Hunter went to Melbourne's now retired. Luke Dowerhouse went to Geelong, is now retired. Tom Campbell was the emergency. He went to St Kilda, now he's at Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
That's all from the 16 Premiership. They've only got 3 members of that side still playing for the Western Bulldogs. Now, that's interesting to say the least. Bailey Smith's also left since. It was more on while all of us at the moment are more than bewildered about Beveridge.
Yes.
About
Him
Ugle Hagen
yes.
and, he's out partying and what he posts. And
Yep.
none of us can do that in our normal job,
Nope.
out of that. So there's and you can sense Western Bulldogs' frustration there. But I'm just saying I found that fascinating that all those guys are still playing at different clubs. Like that's unreal because it's their first premiership in 2016 since the 50s.
54, I think it was. Yep.
Yeah, from there. So you would have thought that would have been a bond for life amongst those guys. Now, let's also remember, still from that, you had Tom Boyd retire due to the depression issues, and Liam Picken with the concussion issue.
Yep.
So it's another two there, which, there as well. So it's just...
Is that Luke Beveridge's coaching style that...
Well, that's what you then want.
He's turning that over to reinvent?
You wonder how many people can't hack up with him. It's not... for mine, that's not a tick to a coach.
Okay.
There's only as I said, there's three left. There's Bont, Libber.
Yep.
One other.
Norton.
I'm annoyed with myself now.
No, you're right. We'll think about that one a little bit later.
I'm just saying I did check and there's only three.
Yep.
So I just found that fascinating in that regard.
Yep. Mate, it's a wonderful stat that you've certainly come up with there. And also, some of those teams they've obviously gone to or traded to, they're not exactly setting the world on fire either. So there is maybe a little bit of method in the madness, but we will see. All right, mate, let's get into this week's tips very, very quickly. All right, coming up Thursday night, waiting for this to upload. Thursday night, Melbourne v Richmond.
I'll go Melbourne.
I'm going to go Richmond. Collingwood v Essendon on Anzac Friday during the day.
Collingwood.
Fremantle, I'm going to go Collingwood as well. Fremantle v Adelaide in the night game.
Again, if in doubt, I'll go for the home side. So I'll go along those ways, but I really think it's a 50-50 game.
I'm going to go Adelaide on this occasion. St Kilda v Brisbane at Marvel.
Yeah, I know it's at Marvel, but I'll go Brisbane.
Port Adelaide v North Melbourne.
Port
Adelaide for me. Giants v the Western Bulldogs at Manuka.
If in doubt, go the home side. Giants
for me, but I think it's going to be a tight, scrappy
affair.
I
reckon I might watch that game at the Arch.
I reckon that one might be the game of the round.
Yeah, I agree.
Gold Coast v Sydney at People First Choice Stadium in the Gold Coast.
I'll go Gold Coast.
Gold Coast for me. Carlton v Geelong.
I'll go Geelong.
Geelong for me. Hawthorn v the Eagles.
Hawthorn.
All right, mate, we better take a very quick break. We've certainly run over time on our AFL side of things. Let's see what's coming up. Adelaide United back on the winners list and playing again tonight, so we'll give you some live scores on that one. And in the SANFL, Glenelg and Adelaide go head-to-head, and boy, oh boy, was it a good game. In the Thunderbirds, just going down there after a wonderful achievement to one of their championship star players.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Sport. We love it and we live it here at INTERSPORT. We are the heart of sport in our local communities. Family owned and operated, supporting local clubs and the community. INTERSPORT has all the latest products from major brands like Nike, Asics and New Balance at the best prices. Come visit us in store and see why we're your trusted sports experts. INTERSPORT, the heart of sport.
All right, mate, we thank our sponsors as per usual. All right, moving on, let's talk Adelaide United. Adelaide United back on the winning side of things with a last gasp goal. And guess who it was to? Archie Goodwin again. He's having an absolute blinder of a season.
Yeah, we need him to get another goal in the next 6 minutes.
There you go. You're referring, obviously, to the make-up game that Adelaide and Brisbane had to miss through Hurricane Alfie, I think it was, earlier on in the year. Yep. Currently playing at the moment at Suncorp Stadium. Surface doesn't look all that good, but Adelaide United scored first, but Brisbane have got back to a 1-1 draw. So, as you mentioned, 5 or 6 minutes to go on this one, so it should be very interesting. I know we've talked about it briefly. Carl Viet obviously departing at the end of the season. What's the direction of Adelaide United after he vacates?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, I'm not in the know enough in the soccer world in that regard.
Yep.
So admit I haven't chased up anything and haven't heard anything.
That's all right. That gives us something to work on. We might touch base with Mary if she's still about the place. I know she's not part of the Reds Army or the Red Army at the moment, but she is heavily
certainly
involved.
know a hell of a lot more than me.
Exactly right. All right, let's move on to the SANFL. One of the games of the year in Adelaide and Glenelg, which, let's face it, we do think that they're probably the two front runners at this stage, especially with Adelaide having a healthy AFL list. But Adelaide getting the chocolates on this occasion.
Yeah, look, I've seen the highlights.
Who's impressing you from Adelaide that might get a call up?
I like Edwards and I like Dowling.
Yep.
I like McAndrew the ruckman. Pretty pissed off that he's not playing for Nord. On that side of things.
Yep.
But he's been impressed. But look, I'm not a Riley O'Brien fan, but give him his due. He was far better on the weekend. I will give him that.
I will notice, I will say that I have noticed that Riley O'Brien is starting to tap a little bit more to position.
It's been better this year.
We did mention Sam Balderstone a little bit earlier on. Do you think he's having an impact with that?
I would, possibly. I think probably, hopefully, his positioning on Saturday around the ground was far better than it's been.
Yep.
And that's the area where I've been so angry about, because there's been times when he's caught in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
He might as well be in the bar. He might as well be in the Gary McIntosh bar.
Yep.
At times.
There are far worse places to be, mate. I can tell you right now.
And he was better on the weekend.
Yep.
Whether that helped, because Adelaide positioned themselves better up the ground a bit, maybe as well.
But was that the rocket from the week before against Geelong?
I don't think it hurt, put it that way.
No, fair enough. Let's talk other results. Nord playing Sturt on the Thursday night there. Sturt way too good for the Redlegs at the moment. Still some injury concerns at the parade?
Yeah, there are a lot. Look, obviously losing Boyd, but then the fact Lau, Baden Lowe and Donnelly. So your second and third from the BNF as well are out. So there's a hell of a lot. There's been too much change. Look,
Jade Sheedy's got a bit of work ahead of him. Yeah. Doesn't get any easier this week, and we'll talk about that game in a minute. Woodville West Torrens getting up over the West Adelaide Bloods.
Yes.
Fairly predictable result.
Yep.
This one was an interesting one for me. I thought this one would be a lot closer, and apart from the Glenelg Adelaide game, I thought this one would be a ripper, but the Bulldogs, Central Districts, big winners over North Adelaide.
Yeah, they're building pretty well, actually, the Dogs. So, yeah.
They are indeed. Certainly the quiet achievers, as I've got down on my list at the moment. And obviously Port Adelaide getting up over the Panthers. That game was televised on the Friday night. Once again, fantastic to see SNFL football on mainstream TV. Exactly right. Keep it up. Can't praise the SNFL any higher than that. All right, let's work to our round 4 games. We've got... Friday the 25th, we've got the Bulldogs v Port Adelaide. Bulldogs for me. The grand final rematch in Glenelg v Nord at Stratorama. Glenelg for me. South Adelaide v North Adelaide.
I'll go North.
North for me. The Eagles v the Crows.
So the Crows...
That's on Sunday.
You're going...
So Crows are playing on Friday.
So they'll have their players back.
Yep.
So they'll be I'll go the Crows.
Yep, Crows for me as well. And Sturt v West Adelaide on Sunday as well.
Sturt.
So we've got 2 games on the Friday, 2 games on the Saturday, and 1 game on the Saturday and 2 games on the Sunday. So
I might go and have a look at that game on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Do you want to have a quick run through the ladder, or still too early in the season?
No, I don't really want to look at it.
Fair enough. All right, let's talk netball. The Thunderbirds, a bit of a shock loss to the Sydney Swifts.
Yeah, a bit disappointing.
Hopefully it sharpens them up.
Yep,
We'll talk about sharpening up.
Yep.
But after a pretty good start to the season,
Hopefully it's the one they need.
Exactly right. Coming up, they're playing the Giants May 3rd at Ken Rosewell Arena. So over there in Melbourne, fantastic arena there. Romelda, milestone game, having played the most games in ANZ Championship history with 233 appearances. That is a hell of a lot of games. Because you think most seasons run for 14, 15 rounds plus that. Finals.
Yeah, so it's
233. That is a hell of a lot. So well done to her. All right, mate, we better take another quick break. Coming up, we did a bit of a audit of missing interviews, and we've got Darren Webber part 1
thanks to Potsy
on Friday, and we've got Phil Harper part 1 as well.
You're listening to the Game On podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Looking to buy or sell your home anywhere in Adelaide, from the hills to the sea? Meet Gary KRIEVS, your dedicated local agent from OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. With unparalleled knowledge of Adelaide's housing market and a commitment to exceptional service, Gary ensures a smooth and stress-free experience for all your real estate needs. Trust the expert, trust Gary KRIEVS at OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. Your next dream home awaits. Contact Gary today on 0422 071 317 or on email garyk@ocre.com.au. And for more listings, please visit owenscasserly.com.au. Make it happen.
Flashbacks.
Cathy Freeman. There's a great support of the crowd here in Stawell. She's virtually got a quarter of the race to make up. The others have got that sort of head start on it. And it's Thompson who's leading. The OUWENS in the yellow. And in white, Shane Coos. With Cathy Freeman about 30 metres down. Coos with the way going very well with the OUWENS. On the inside, Thompson dropping back a little bit. Coming through on the pick is Tara Gately. Can the crowd get Cathy Freeman up from there? About 200 metres from home. They're shaking their heads. But here she comes. Cathy Freeman out after Shane Coos. Now the crowd realises she's a chance. Cathy's past the first of them. She goes past Thompson. She's going to win, I think, easily, in fact. Lewis gives her a shot. Cathy Freeman now is going to catch Shane Coos. She wins hard. Cathy Freeman. She does it. Freeman by 1 metre. Beating Coos. And she had to run the race for the longer and Stawell. Last year was much easier than that. They were going to make it easy here today. She got shot at all.
You're listening to the Game On podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
A dents and scratches putting a dent in your day? Introducing Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide, your trusted solution for automotive woes. With over 2 decades of expertise, Roger Steen Crash Repairs guarantees top-notch service, restoring your vehicle to its former glory in no time. From minor dings to major collisions, our skilled technicians handle it all with precision and care, using state-of-the-art equipment and techniques.
Roger Steen Crash Repairs saved my car. It looks brand new.
Fast, friendly and reliable. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my vehicle. Don't let accidents slow you down. Visit Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide at 14 Penner Avenue, Glynde, for quality service you can count on. And here's a special offer just for our listeners. Mention this podcast and receive a $100 discount on your repair. Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide. Excellence in every repair.
Extra extra time. Big finish.
All right, mate, let's talk very briefly about the Stawell gift. Obviously, in our flashbacks, very topical at the moment. Cathy Freeman coming from a long way back to win that as well. Stawell gift this year, both favourites out before the final. Bit of a disappointing end to it.
Yeah, it was. I did touch base briefly with my running contact in terms of Stawell gift. Damien Dips O'Donnell did come third himself in terms of both him and his father have been in the Stawell gift podiums.
Yep.
And he thought the two correct winners won.
Yes.
In Evans and Rizzo. So on the handicaps, and he was disappointed with a couple of the write-ups, and that was the journalists, in particular in Gleeson, not having done his homework and not understanding what Stawell is, that it is a handicap race.
Yep.
And, so it was just disappointing that Kennedy and Gout weren't, the two racing. Well, that's not the way a handicap race works.
Yep.
So, I totally agree with Dips. Do your homework.
Absolutely. The preliminary rounds certainly garnered a lot of publicity and also excitement as well. Fantastic.
And I know their
view
crowds
fantastic.
were the best they've been for donkey's years and all that. So that was fantastic.
All right, mate. Before we move on any further, Adelaide United unfortunately finished the game at 1-1. I've just seen the full-time score there.
Yep.
An interesting little stat that's come up. Adelaide United have lost 21 points from winning positions in the A-League men's this season, more than any other team.
Yeah, it's horrendous.
It probably just shows you exactly where they are at.
Yeah.
Speaking of the soccer, just before we move on very quickly, the Adelaide United women's team is actually going great guns at the moment. They are going to be playing finals, and I think we might cover them a little bit more over the next couple of weeks.
Definitely.
All right, let's talk SANFLW. Woodville West Torrens getting the chocolates over Norwood. North, convincingly. North Adelaide getting the chocolates over Glenelg. Bit of a tight one between Sturt and West Adelaide, and an even tighter one between South Adelaide and the Western Bulldogs, the Central District's Bulldogs there.
Yeah.
So some good round 4 games. Round 5, mate, let's get some tips. Sorry, round 6 games. Let's get some tips. Glenelg v Norwood.
I'll go the legs to fight back for fact.
There you go. Norwood for me. West Adelaide v Centrals.
Centrals?
North Adelaide v the Eagles, or the Eagles v North
Eagles.
Adelaide. Eagles for me. Sturt v the Panthers.
Panthers.
Panthers for me as well. All right, let's move on. The NBA, we'll talk NBL. 36ers signed 3, but they lose one pretty big one. In Kendrick Davis, obviously wanting to play with his mate, Della Vedova, in the Sydney Kings. Where does that leave Mike Wells in his second year of coaching? Does he see it as an opportunity, or, again, you mentioned a little bit earlier on with Beveridge chopping and changing teams. It's not a good sign of a coach that has that team buy-in.
Yeah, basketball, though, it's always the way, though. Like, geez, you only got a glimpse and you go, no, he played for that team. He played for that. It's incredible. Loyalty isn't the capital.
And it's only a
letter.
1-year deal for Davis in Sydney as well. Finn Cameron, I'm talking about, Michael Harris and Isaac White. All local kids, I think, or local players or local South Australian players. So a little bit of a South Australian flavour. I did hear a little bit of the interview with Mike Wells tonight about they're scouring the planet for some decent imports as well. And they need an answer from the 2 that they're holding off on at the moment. All right, let's move on. We might cover the NBA Finals next week in a bit more depth, but let's talk cricket very, very quickly. 14-year-old makes his debut in the IPL and hits a 6 off his first delivery.
First ball, I would have called it off there. That'll do me. Walk off.
Well, he ended up scoring 38 or 39,
Yeah.
Not bad.
Certainly, look.
Shades of Sachin Tendulkar?
Oh, the Indian talent range in that side of things is... And look, population-wise, so it should be. So,
And they live cricket, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
Breakfast, lunch and dinner, and then...
And keep going.
And 3 snacks and a after-dinner mint as well with cricket. There's no reason why. The Saka, signing an early player. Are they done and dusted just yet?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, Hanno Jacobs
Yes,
set
I
to
knew.
return for a 3-year deal.
I be honest, I think I knew about that about 2 months ago.
You did sort of flag it and
Yes.
said we've got to keep it under wraps, but
Yes.
welcome to South Australia. Hanno, could they potentially sneak one or two more in?
There's a possibility.
Yep.
Let's leave it at that.
All right, we'll let you do your reconnaissance on that one, mate. NRL scheduling problems. Seems a couple of teams have played each other a couple of times within the first 7 rounds.
It's a bit crazy. Yeah, it's
How
a
can
bit
they get
weird.
that so wrong?
Yeah, it's just you just sort of shake. Yeah, I'd disagree with anyone playing each other twice before you've played all the other teams. I hate it when the AFL does it, but in the first 6
7
weeks,
rounds, yeah.
7 weeks, that's bizarre.
Yep.
Crazy.
NRL have got some issues that they need to work out, and I think there's a lot of fans that are in the same boat. Quickly running through the ladder, the Bulldogs, Storm, Raiders, Warriors, Broncos, Sharks, Dragons, and Rabbitohs round out the top 8. All right, mate. Before we move on to the rulebook rant, because I know you've got a big one for me tonight. Let's talk Oscar Piastri sitting top of the championship table after
Sensational.
back-to-back wins.
Fantastic. An Australian there. Look, I probably I am a person who does jump on the bandwagon in Formula One wise, and I'm following it more at the moment purely because of Piastri. I will blatantly be honest there. So,
I think a lot of people are, and he's definitely one that Australia's hoped for as far as going on with it, and he's certainly showing that he can. All right, mate, I'm going to play the sound, and I'm going to make up a little thing for our YouTube channel for...
Rulebook Rant.
All right, mate. Go your hardest to finish this off tonight.
I'm going to start balanced in terms of Noah Bolter. When it first happened, I think we all thought male, alcohol, off-season,
Night
how
out.
predictable,
Yep.
night out. Yep. 4 weeks, well done, Richmond. You've taken action.
Yep.
Once the vision came out, I think the overwhelming majority of people thought, hang on, 4 weeks and 2 preseason games. Now, I'm sorry.
Yep, that doesn't
None
count.
of the players want to play them.
No.
Yeah, don't count that.
Yep.
So out of that, I just think it has been appallingly handled by the Richmond Football Club and the AFL.
Mhm.
Now, yes, they had their meetings, and so, yes, he was suspended until, originally the hearing, and then the hearing date got put back. They should have covered off on that, the potential of it. How they read the room so poorly was just staggering.
Yep.
You gave Gerard Whateley nailed it, where by playing him on the weekend, it put all the publicity out. Now, Damien Hardwick, to say he's got foot and mouth disease at times is an understatement. Now, I'm sorry, a politician is asked their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They state what the overwhelming majority of people think. So the politician's only doing their job there.
Yep.
And he's got the stupidity to criticise her. And criticising Allen, the Victorian Premier.
Yep.
It was just dumb. Adam Uze hinting that Bolter was somehow the victim was just unbelievable.
Yep.
Now, the comment has been made well and truly from internally the Richmond Football Club that their era of the 3 flags, a hell of a lot of that was built on culture. How to shoot your culture and damage your brand
In the foot, yep.
in the foot is just stupidity. It's incompetent. I'm stunned by it.
Yep.
How they couldn't just go, let's hold him back 3 more days. Now, we will never know, but there's nothing wrong with anyone, and it has been suggested,
Yep.
and suspiciously thinking the judge's findings today and putting the curfew in place so he's unable to play night games.
Yep.
Would that have happened if it had got the publicity beforehand, and if he'd been therefore suspended the 6 or games beforehand,
Yep.
we will never know. I just think it's been handled appallingly, a lack of professionalism, arrogance, and incompetence. I know not everyone agrees.
And that's why it's the rule book rant, mate.
And I've got no problem in terms of that, but just think logically a bit more out of it.
Yep.
Look,
read the room.
yeah.
That's really what it gets
and
down
that,
to.
it didn't. Richmond did not read the room
Yep.
at all. And in the overall scheme of things, it's a rebuild for them. They're not going to play finals. Are we going to remember that in 5 years' time they won? It's actually irrelevant.
Yep.
Totally irrelevant that they ended up winning.
Does it
Just
sour?
means
Does
nothing.
it sour the win though against the Gold Coast?
Well, I
little
still
bit?
wait potential ramifications, and there are. There's huge potential. It's not only there have been people sending back their memberships and all that sort of thing. That's going to hurt them a bit. But if sponsors pull out, now also there are other long-term effects. Do not dare have the stupidity to think every player is happy that he played on the weekend.
Yep.
Or parents of players happy
Yep.
that he's played. That feast is behind the scenes. Things always catch up. You know,
That little spark,
and
it turns into
it just
wildfire,
hurts
doesn't it? Yep.
in the future.
Yep.
And it might not be till the next season after, or the following up. But don't dare think this will not have long-term ramifications for the Richmond Football Club. I cannot believe now. Taylor Walker cops 6 weeks and a $20,000 fine. I will always be furious with that the whole story never came out, and it should have been, yes, Taylor was guilty, but how about the other player was also guilty?
Yep.
And how that got swept away, and Taylor got crucified there.
Yep.
Now, how in the hell that is worse than what Bolter did? He beat the living suitcases out of a guy. He's been pleaded guilty to causing grievous bodily harm.
Yep.
Now, I also found it a bit bewildering how the judge ruled it on the lesser side of severe that's just bizarre that, young Davis from the South Adelaide was one punch.
Yep.
Hooksy.
Yes.
We all know if you get the person in the right spot,
It's got deadly consequences, doesn't
it
it?
can. And look, yesterday, because even yesterday, the Dylan Meyer, the
Grime
Nash
Myers, yep.
with Grime Myers,
Yep.
he was out cold before that hit the ground.
Yep.
Now, who's to say if that's just slightly in the wrong spot?
Yep. Phil Hughes.
And the ball which got Phil Hughes, that Tom Cooper had also been hit batting, and they worked it out. It was less than a millimetre away from where Phil got hit.
Yep.
So how they came to say out of that is just incredulous. I'm still just totally dumbfounded how if anyone just thinks through it remotely logically and honestly,
yes,
how they're defending what Richmond and the AFL have done.
Bang, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get a bit of a sound grad for that one there. Mate, we'll leave our good, the bad, the ugly for tonight. I think
they
probably
covered it
very, very well. As per usual, we'd like to thank all our sponsors. Please like, rate and subscribe. And like we like to say every week, we've got to do better than this, and we will next week. Thanks mate.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.